So now it's been a week or two since Kung Fu Panda 4 came out, and yeah, I made my thoughts on it clear, which you can see in my video I made when it came out. And I did it very quickly where I didn't have time to check out what most other people think. Now, I don't interact or check in on with most of the animation community, because, you know, I want to keep my sanity. But from what I've seen, people did not like it much. Some people say it's mediocre, unsatisfying, and just bad. But okay, animation community is gonna animation community, and hell, it's probably the same for any movie nowadays. But I see people say they liked it better than Kung Fu Panda 3, or even that 3 was also terrible as a sequel and just a movie. And while people are entitled to their own opinions, I think that's really unfair. Hell, I see people treat 3 and 4 like they don't even exist. Which, side note, I hate this attitude being normalized, it's awful. Don't try to bury a movie and all its worth just because you don't think it's good enough to keep some perfectionist fantasy about the series. It's childish and insulting. But I really think people aren't giving 3 the credit it deserves. It might not be near the perfection of the first 2 movies, but I think this movie has a lot of really great things about it that no one really addresses, and arguably is the perfect way to end this franchise. And this is not a, oh, 4 was so bad, let's retroactively say 3 was good. This is me responding to a lot of the negativity I see in 3 now because of it. And I really want to stand up for it and stop the slander it gets because I think it's a really great movie. And hell, it's not my first time making a big video on how a Dreamworks movie deserves much more love than it gets. So yeah, let's go through Kung Fu Panda 3 and really dissect what I feel it does great and how it benefits the franchise as a whole. So the Kung Fu Panda series is really connected in that it oftentimes directly refers to an aspect of the previous movie and makes it a central theme. The second movie focusing on explaining Po's origin and why he's the only panda in the series, largely from this one scene.
Sometimes I can't believe I'm actually your son.
I think it's time I told you something I should have told you a long time ago. The secret ingredient of my secret ingredient soup.
But it still gave the viewer the thought of where Po came from and why Mr. Ping is his father, which became the main plot of 2 with Po trying to deal with his suppressed trauma and finding out who he really is and where he came from, which is regarded as one of the best parts of the movie to many. But the ending to 2 directly gives way to 3, showing that Po's father and a small sect of pandas did survive Shen's genocide, which is the main focus of this movie. So more than any other movie, this movie directly connects to the one before it, making it feel a lot more unified than the others. And yeah, that's something I'll bring up soon, but I want to get going. So after our title animation, we get into... Okay, even from the first frame of it, I need to talk about it. This movie is absolutely gorgeous. Like, I can't get enough of it. Oh my god, the colors, the contrast, the environments, and lighting, it's so absolutely gorgeous. Like, even from the first scene of the freaking movie, seeing the amazing details of the spirit world, like this really great yin-yang symbol arranged to the camera and animation. I still know people do that to the color shifting in the background with the gold and green already symbolizing the dueling nature of Kai and Uwe before we even meet them, to just how big, detailed, and beautiful the spirit world is. Like, honestly, it almost looks like a proto-Spider-Verse in this way. It's incredible. And so many other shots in this movie carry this amazing lighting and color use. I can't get enough of it. I mean, all the movies have insanely good lighting and use of color, but I feel this movie does it the most and the most beautifully. Like, I seriously cannot get over how good this movie looks and still looks fantastic to this day. I'd argue it's the best looking Kung Fu Panda movie and has the best use of color and lighting out of all of them. It's truly amazing, and I hate how no one talks about that. Like, even other reviewers I've seen barely talk about the movie's incredible art and animation, and I hate it. Like, is this really one of those you can only truly appreciate it if you're an artist thing? Because it feels like it. Just, it's so good and deserves so much more attention. Same thing with Ruby Gilman. Like, it has such amazing animation, lighting, locations, and atmosphere that no one talks about because they're too busy complaining about stupid shit. But yeah, this movie's animation is gorgeous and it needs to be respected and addressed like it truly deserves. But going back to the story, we see Uguay has been chilling on the spirit realm, which is introduced in this movie. I'm actually all for it, as not only does it expand the world building, but also that spiritual and mystic nature that was hinted at but not focused on in the other movies, which helps to give this movie its own thematic identity. And even though Uguay's passing was very vague in the first movie, everyone figured he would have passed on to another spiritual plane anyway. But it's not long before we quickly get introduced to our villain, Kai, and his awesome theme, and oh my god, this movie is so gorgeous! I'll get more about his character when we get more info, but for now, no, he and Uguay have some serious beef, as Uguay is characteristically bemused by it. And they start to fight, and oh my god, again, this animation is so good, why don't people appreciate it more? And I love how the fight also characterizes both of their natures, as Oogway doesn't directly attack and uses dodges and defensive techniques, as Kai goes all in for power and cheating, using his environments as gaining more advantage. Really great touch. Kai also says that he's been spending 500 years in the spirit realm training and stealing the chi of other Kung Fu masters to steal their power for himself, and plans to steal Oogway not only for his power but for revenge. As he says,
"Will you realize the more you take, the less you have?"
And accepts his fate knowing it's someone else's destiny to stop him before Kai uses the power to escape to the real world. Now, it's a pretty big way to start this movie, and honestly, I'm all for this movie just going headfirst into the themes and conflicts and not kind of dull on it a bit like the first two. It's also a pretty good hook in such an incredibly animated scene. But we get our title, and it doesn't really start out with a 2D animated action sequence like the other movies, which I do love. But I also love how it kind of combines it with the 3D animation, making really nice comic stylized shots, panels, and shading, and high and fantastic energy. Like, I love this movie experiments, it's fantastic. And yeah, all lead to a mundane payoff like all the other movies' intros. But they all gather at the Jade Palace as Shifu announces he's retiring and is handing the mantle to Po. Now, it does seem a little weird and out of nowhere, but Shifu hasn't really taught since the first movie, and it feels like Po and the Five already know enough and already are masters. And I mean, Shifu didn't do too much in 2 anyway, so it kind of feels like he would retire. And let's not forget that in 2, Po pulled off the inner peace technique that single-handedly defeated Shen's army when no other master could. Plus, being the only person to defeat Tai Lung, he has a lot under his belt, and know that Shifu hopes his unorthodox training can teach the others what he can't, and it's kind of a natural evolution, after he's pretty much mastered everything, to start teaching others what he knows. It makes more sense than you think. I do like how, despite Po's objection, the Five are optimistic and supporting of Po, showing again how nice of a friend group they are as well. Well, at least until Po messes it all up, since he doesn't really know what he's doing, which is kind of important for later. It also causes Po to lose confidence like the other movies, but also kind of subverts it in this great moment.
What was Oogway thinking? I think he heard us.
But it leads to another fantastic moment that truly deserves a lot more attention than it gets, where Shifu goes to Po and says he expects him to fail and says this:
"If you only do what you can do, you will never be more than you are now."
Which, to anyone who has ever worked for a skill or talent, nothing is truer than that. And it seriously speaks to me. We get to this part, which is practically the theme of the movie that everyone overlooks for some reason.
I'm the Dragon Warrior.
And what exactly does that mean, Dragon Warrior?
Like, again, seriously important. Shifu says Uwe is chosen for a larger purpose and for his true potential, as he shows off chi, life energy that can be manipulated like magic that can only be utilized with mastery of self-actualization. As Po's dejected, not knowing how to be a teacher, and can't be like Shifu, he says that he just wants him to be like himself, which shows how much their training in one affected him, now truly embodying that concept. Even if Po doesn't really get it.
Almost there, Shifu, just a little more confusing and you'll be the next Oogway.
Okay, I love that line. It's also then we see Kai arrive, and I should talk a bit more about him. First of all, he's voiced by the great J.K. Simmons, who I absolutely love. He does a pretty good job here, even if I don't think it's as strong as the previous villain's performances, since I still feel his voice is a little out of place coming from him. But still, he does a great job on the threatening and comedic deliveries.
I will find him and take his chi too. Okay, I used to work with Oogway, Maker of Widows.
Idiots! It's me talking through them. Kai!
Who?
Okay, enough.
But unfortunately, that's kind of a problem people have, that he's taken too much as a joke, largely around the idea that no one remembers him to his annoyance. And it does make him a lot less intimidating. So like the other villains did have their comedic moments, but with Tai Lung, he was mostly intimidating throughout, only being used as a joke in his final fight with Po, which was a super slapsticky fight. And Shen didn't really have too much jokes at his expense, but largely to his confusion with Po and his own pretentiousness. With this, Kai from the start is introduced as someone you shouldn't care about, which hurts him a lot, even if it does get into something later. But we soon get to the big point in the movie, where Po finally meets his real dad at long last. Well, after a comedic misunderstanding. And Po is overjoyed not only to see another panda after 2, but also his real dad. Now, I've seen people get really upset over this, saying it ruins Po's character journey and epiphany in 2, and that's downright character assassination. First of all, get back to me when you see real character assassination. And second of all, I'd argue it's not like that at all. Let's not forget, this was not a thing they added in this movie just because they needed a plot. This was a plot point that was in the second movie. They were going to elaborate on it in the next movie, so don't act like this wasn't planned. But I think people are missing the point of this scene entirely. Kung Fu Panda 2 wasn't about Po trying to find the other pandas and accepting he was alone. It was trying to find out his past and trying to move past his suppressed trauma and memory. That's what his inner peace was about. He didn't know he was the last panda until he learned all of his past. In the end, he realized it wasn't who he is. He's not defined by his past, but who he is as Mr. Ping's son. And this movie doesn't break that or destroy that at all. Instead, it adds more to it. It's kind of the theme of the movie. What truly defines you as a person, and what it does later further cements that theme. Overly Sarcastic Productions made a really good video on their last of their kind narratives that goes over the movies that I super recommend you watch. And like what, you want to go to his dad like, hey, I already had an epiphany about my past in my family a month ago, so I don't really care anymore, you can just leave. Like that would be a stronger narrative. So yeah, please stop saying this ruins the narrative and understand the actual narrative going on here. It also leads to another interesting thing where Mr. Ping is very worried about losing his son, especially now that Po's real dad, Lee, is back in his life. Which is actually a really good use of Mr. Ping that naturally evolves a lot of his plots in previous movies. In the first movie, while not entirely the focus, we see their bond how much Ping wants him to effectively follow in his footsteps. Then, arguably in the Christmas special, where he worries about his duties at the Jade Palace ruining their relationship with each other. And then in 2 where we focus on him very worried about losing his son physically. And it practically puts it to the forefront. I really appreciate that and it works so well for his character. Lee also explains that Panda survived in the mountains and received a message from the universe to find his son. And it's a really great conflict that develops a lot of the characters and makes the narrative more interesting. Of course, then we have Po trying to show his dad his awesome new life messing around the Jade Palace, which is a nice callback to the first movie, and it is pretty nice that the two are so open with each other, feeling a great sense of catharsis. But as they meet the others, they're called to a fight as we see Kai sends his Jade minions after them. So after stealing someone's chi, Kai can use their empty vessels practically as slaves with their skills and abilities to do his bidding and can communicate with each one. Honestly, a pretty cool ability that's well separated from the other villains of the series and does fit thematically with his character. Plus also getting to see a bunch of cool new Kung Fu masters and how they have different techniques and abilities. I love how it fills out the world more. Plus how Po fanboys after fighting the ancient warriors. Though Lee is very distraught seeing his long lost son in active danger. They learn about Kai and his goal to gather all the chi as they research him, eventually finding only one scroll of his existence, where we get a huge lore drop. It turns out Oogway when he was younger led a great army with his brother in arms and closest friend, Kai. Which actually does imply a lot we never see. Did Oogway have this shifty, dark past? With what we hear with Kai, it doesn't seem it was all too good. I actually really wish we got more of this, and it would be super interesting that a sage like Oogway had a darker past than he let on. But after being mortally wounded, Kai traveled for days on end trying to find someone to cure his friend, finding the hidden panda village, where the pandas use chi to heal Oogway and taught him how to use and give chi. Which is actually really fitting. I love how pandas would be the ultimate masters of peaceful chi manipulation. However, Kai only saw chi for its power and learned to take it for himself, and Oogway had to stop him, leading to a fierce battle, brother against brother, where Oogway defeated him and sent him to the spirit realm. And unfortunately, that's kind of the most backstory we get. I mean, it's good, it's interesting, but it's just not enough, especially for Kung Fu Panda. But everything is there, it's almost compelling enough. It would just take a bit of tweaking, like really commit to the idea of a darker past of Oogway. Hell, Kai's reputation makes him seem that way.
Jade Slayer. You may know me as the Beast of Vengeance, Maker of Widows,
Master of Pain,
General Kai.
Supreme Warlord of all China.
What if his military background, Kai saw chi as the ultimate weapon to become unbeatable, but Oogway, now learning peace from the pandas, couldn't let that happen, and man turned a new leaf to save the people he now has respect for. It's almost there and could have really helped Kai and Oogway in their relationship. Oogway won't see he can only be stopped by a true master of chi if he ever returns, leading the others to worry since no one knows how to use chi. But at least they'll still take Po to the village to teach him how to use it and rediscover what it means to be a panda, and Po is ultra excited and wants to be with people like him, as Ping's dejected that his worst fears are coming true. Meanwhile, Shifu sends Crane and Mantis to find Kai as the five are split up, which is unfortunate since I do really like them and the interactions, and here they break up so soon. But it's not long before they track him down with other masters after him. Hey, is that the same Master Croc from 2? That's awesome. But it's not long before Kai overpowers them and quickly turns them into Jade minions. Again, it sucks to see them gone, but it does intensify Kai's threat level. They can effortlessly enslave and overpower any foe he meets. Like Shen, while being a fearsome fighter, largely relies on his overpowered cannon to decimate any fight, and Tai Lung isn't impervious to attacks, but his skill far outmatches anyone who faces him. With Kai, he uses magic no one can counter or defeat, and adds their power to his growing arsenal, making a new sense of foreboding doom and a kinda nightmarish scenario. But as Poe and Lee travel through some really gorgeous locations, like again this movie looks so good, Mr. Ping snuck with them since he's too worried about Poe. And they continue on with Ping again audibly dissatisfied with Lee and the village. They reach it as Poe is astounded by the picturesque village and the locals welcoming him for once in his life feeling true kinship. Which is so gratifying after his journey in 2 trying to find out his true origins and people, now finally meeting them and being accepted. It's absolutely heartwarming. It also shows us how distant Poe is from normal society by who he is, but refrains a lot of Poe's alienation and clumsiness that he just wasn't made for the world he grew up in. OSP also covered this really well in that Poe's feeling of alienations from the first 2 movies now being realized can be relatable to many of his audience members. And honestly, it's a great way to handle it. More than his people are exactly like him, he has shown how much of what he suppresses in his true nature that many people don't get is truly a part of him. And I love it, it makes things much more interesting that both he and the pandas alienate each other. It's a really great addition to the narrative and world building. But I also feel like to talk about the comedy here since these parts are the most overtly comedic until the climax. People say that the 3rd movie has the worst humor and it's too juvenile. And yeah, I guess. I agree there are some moments here and there. I mean, the movie still has plenty of good jokes I love, but also a lot that kind of fall flat. I mean, to be honest, I don't love the humor in this franchise, and I'd argue virtually all of it's juvenile in some way, so I don't consider it that much of a huge change. It's fine. Though yeah, 2 is still the funniest. Speaking of which, the next scenes are mostly lighthearted fun, with Lee trying to teach Poe the way of the panda, which is pretty much a life of self-serving and laziness that Poe thinks is chi training, with the bonus of getting to know his true culture and past. And yeah, it's kind of obvious where this is going. But it does lead to a really fantastic scene where Lee talks about Poe's mom and how much he loved his family until it was all taken when Shen slaughtered their village. And the history and love in this scene is almost palpable, with Poe learning about his mom and how much Lee truly loved her. It's truly a fantastic and heartbreaking scene that adds so much to the movie, and I wish God appreciated more.
You don't have to worry about losing me ever again.
But we go back to the Jade Palace, and here every other master got assimilated by Kai, which really does amp up the stakes in that there's pretty much no one left. And it's not long before Kai comes in with the Jadified Crane and Mantis, and man, this shot looks so gorgeous! Poe's right, making an entrance really does matter. And again, the lighting is so gorgeous! We do get to see a bit more of Kai here, that he's furious at being forgotten to history as Ubi became an idolized master and he seeks total retribution for his memory. And we get a bit of introspection and nuance here.
I fought by his side. I loved him like a brother, and he betrayed me.
Like again, I'm not going to deny that Kai is weaker than Tai Lung and Shen, but there's stuff there. I just really wish the movie elaborated more on it. But I still think Kai is not nearly as shallow as what people say. We get some pretty cool fights that does nicely show off Kai's weapons and versatile functions, but we see Kai isn't always cracked out to be in physical combat and then gets his underlings to fight for him, which does illustrate more of his nature I'll get to later. And with them does he take Viper and Monkey's chi, leaving only Shifu and Tigress. With no way to defeat him, Shifu desperately calls Tigress to warn Poe as he's their only hope at this point as she reluctantly flees. And then Kai single-handedly destroys the entire Jade Palace, and oh my god, again, this looks so good! Like, it does really show his power and the movie's commitment as he pretty much destroys one of the most iconic places in the franchise with ease. Kai takes Shifu as he makes the final journey to collect Poe and the rest of the pandas. But of course, Poe's just living up in the village, having to be with his people. But Tigress comes in and warns Poe that Kai's pretty much won and he's coming for him now. I do love how Tigress is the sole survivor here since she and Poe had such a great relationship throughout the movies. In the first movie, she was the most against him being the Dragon Warrior until accepting him at the end for his accomplishments. The second had then become much closer and getting to know him and caring for him like a true friend, and here she's pretty much his only lifeline back to his warrior self. Arguably, it's a more personal connection than if it was Shifu. Poe is desperate to learn the secret chi technique to defeat Kai and save everyone, but Lee admits he doesn't know and everyone forgot chi long ago. Lee admits he lied to get Po to safety after seeing the danger he was up against, as of course Po is furious that he not only lied to him, but he left the valley unprotected and virtually everyone he knows is gone now. It does elevate it much more for a lie revealed moment, since everyone does have their own point in this regard and is very easy to catch up on if you watch. Lee can't bear to lose his son again, but Po says,
You just did.
which wow, just after that scene a while ago just hurts. People say 3 is the lightest of the trilogy, and yeah, fair enough I guess, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have these emotional gut punch parts the previous movies have. But Mr. Ping surprisingly takes charge over the situation and goes to Lee, who he pretty much has done nothing but hate, but tries to comfort him, saying he also liked the Po and accepts Lee as another father figure, again in this really great moment. It's just that Po needs both of his dads now more than ever, and they should support him no matter what. And it's another really good and heartwarming moment that I wish got acknowledged more. Meanwhile, as Po trains, Tiger says he can't fight Kai head on, and Po plans to use the Wuxi fingerhold as an instant win. But Tiger says there's no way he can get past this army of Jade minions, as there is eyes and ears and only a master of Chi can stop him. Po says he doesn't know how to use Chi, nor even what he is at this point. Po, Dragon Warrior, a panda, or whatever. But Lee supports him and rallies the rest of the pandas as Po's army. But Po doesn't think he can teach anyone. But Lee tries to support him and that he can do it, and he can train them to be just like him. But Po realizes what Shifu said long ago and what it means. So instead of teaching them Kung Fu, here's to train them with their own nature, using their own skills gathered in the panda village and training them for combat, which is the perfect thing in this franchise to do, since it's exactly what happened in the first movie. Shifu couldn't train Po to be a conventional master to stop Tai Lung, and had to realize he had to use Po's own skill and motivation trying to be his own unorthodox master, which was eventually the key to his victory. And now Po is in the same role as Shifu, and can train the way Shifu trained, but as to teach the way he was trained, helping multiple people realize their own potential through their own natures. It's a perfect way for this series to go full circle, and I love it. It truly feels like things have been paid off. And yeah, through a training montage they set up, but Lee wishes he could have taught him how to use Chi like his ancestors once did. But Kai arrives to the village with an awesome lighting change, and as much as it sucks that Kai being forgotten is treated as a joke, I do think this is hilarious.
The vengeance, maker of widows.
Yes! Finally! Thank you! Almost makes me want to spare your life.
But Kai sends his minions to do his dirty work, and yeah, all the pandas do their panda things to stop or confuse them. Even Po's dads come together in this scene, I love too, to fend off Jade Shifu, which also makes me retroactively miss Mao Mao. And yeah, it's a very silly and slapsticky climax, kinda like the first movie, but to be honest, I think this works a little better, it fits better than you think. I'll admit, I kinda didn't like how in the first movie, Tai Lung was this unstoppable juggernaut of a foe, just be completely sillied into defeat. The movie even kinda breaks on physics for it, as personally treated as flubber or something in it when he never was in the rest of the movie. But here, they never planned to defeat Kai with this. The entire point would be so wild and wacky to serve as the ultimate distraction for Kai's minions, and to disorientate him enough so that Po can give him the finger. It honestly makes a lot more sense. And it does work, properly distracting Kai to the point where Po can easily ambush him and pull the finger hold. But yeah, it doesn't work. Kai is already dead and it won't work that way. And Po has pretty much nothing else to rely on and gets thrashed by him as he pleads for the others to run and he failed. And geez, the lighting and atmosphere really top this moment of being like everything is lost. But Po realizes there's one way and grabs Kai and does the finger hold on himself, which granted doesn't exactly make sense, but still a good moment. And god, this scene is so beautiful, oh I can't get enough! And yeah, it's another emotional gut punch scene by the visuals as the survivors are devastated by Po's sacrifice. And in the spirit world, Po has literally no chance as Kai is furious and thrashes him about to take his chi once and for all. In desperation, Lee gathers all the others in a vain attempt to save him and try to do the chi technique he briefly saw and in his ancestral past. He gives his love and respect for Po, now he's helped all of them and what they taught them to be. A father, a friend, a fighter, and giving all their love and hope to him. And it's that gratification of the spirit, that love and appreciation that embodies Chi as they give that love to Po a whole other realm away. And that hope and love gives him the power to break away from Kai's grasp, and more importantly, makes him realize who he is.
I've been asking the same question. The son of a goose? Am I the son of a panda? A student? A teacher? I'm all of them.
And with that, he unlocks his true potential as the environment changes to reflect that to an awe-inspiring gold. And it gets to the thematic crux of the entire series, The true theme of the entire franchise is Po trying to realize who he is and reaching his own potential. The first movie had him trying to reach his dreams and be a Kung Fu master like his fantasy, being pushed down that he's not good enough, but getting that push that he shouldn't have to be like what others expect him to be, and reach his own potential in his own way, becoming better than what anyone thought. And the second movie trying to find what he is, trying to push through that repressed trauma and get answers to his history he knows nothing about, and gaining inner peace through it. And now with all of that, trying to find out who he really is regardless of his accomplishments or titles he now has. But he's not defined by one thing, he's defined by everything, and everything he's done for people he loves, and everything they've done in return. It's beautiful. You can say that each of these movies revolve around a certain aspect of being. First movie was the body, then it's the mind, and now it's a soul. And Po has finally realized who he really is, and that he's truly unique and defined by everything in his life. Just as the true meaning of the Dragon Scroll, there is no secret ingredient, there is no special title, the role means nothing, it's what you make of it. And Po truly embodies that, and through it, becomes a true, literal dragon warrior like he's always dreamed. And it's so gratifying as Po is overhyped with his new power and energy, feeling that pride in his new identity, that he completely thrashes Kai in another beautiful scene. And that's another theme that truly works for this movie. Po only survived by the love and appreciation the people in his life gave him. You can argue it's always been like that. Po has always been shaped around the people in his life. His dad's expectations, and the training Shifu did to work around his own traits to be a master, and his father being the source of his epiphany that ended up saving the day. And the soothsayer in 2 reviving Po and showing him his past he's long since repressed, with his friends trying to give him the support he needs. And now everyone is given their love and appreciation for him and caused him to reach his true potential with his realization. But Kai doesn't love. He might have before, but he got overshadowed by his greed and lust for power. When he sees the power that love and self-worth gives, he sees it as just more power. He doesn't see people as people, but something he can exploit. Kai never improves himself, and he much rather get his minions to do all the work for him, and this assimilates his enemies than fight them. He doesn't give anything, he only takes, and without his special powers and the power that he steals, he's pretty much nothing. Even Oogway acknowledges it here.
And will you realize the more you take, the less you have?
Oogway earned his love and respect for centuries by his kindness and devotion to others, as Kai was forgotten because he wasn't a person worth remembering. He's relied so much on power that isn't his own, that without it, he's just a complete joke, getting thrashed by the person who did put in the effort, that devotion, that love for others that had given the power Kai only wishes he had. And ironically, defeats him by giving him that ultimate power he's craved for so long. But since he never earned it, didn't train with it, didn't appreciate it, it's too much for a person who never did anything but take what he wanted, as it completely destroys him. I'll admit, Kai does have his problems and has his underdeveloped aspects, but thematically, he's the perfect villain for this movie. And upon Kai's defeat, his slaves are restored to normal in the mortal realm, as the spirit realm is changed to a brilliant gold, and my god, this is so gorgeous, why don't we talk about this movie more? And Po and Oogway finally get to talk with each other for so long. Oogway is incredibly proud at Po's growth, and reveals that he sent his father the message to find him. As Oogway acknowledges, Po became the hero he always saw in him, and Po asks why he was chosen in the first place. And he says Po united the past and the present, and he saw the future of Kung Fu in him, and his prior teachings with the Panda culture. Now, this does detract a bit from the more abstract mystical source of why Oogway picked Po to be the Dragon Warrior and giving him a solid reason, but I still think this works enough and is still vague enough to work as Oogway saw his unknown potential on the first day. And you can argue it truly does rabbit the entire story, going back to the beginning and reframing it. He also names Po his true successor and gives him the staff, which will become weirdly important in 4, as it goes back to the normal world, and the art and music is so freaking beautiful! And on arriving, he's greeted by his friends and family, happy he's alive, and he admits they all saved him. And everyone gets in on the love, it's so heartwarming. And even Shifu was proud he finally became the teacher he knew he could be. Another way this movie went around full circle in the beginning, as he even asked to be taught how to use Chi. And the movie ends with everyone together in a huge ceremony with Po teaching them all Kung Fu, Panda's now back in normal society, Shifu gave his respect to Po as the new master, as all use the art of Chi to show their feelings of appreciation and love. What a perfect way to end this. And yeah, I seriously think this movie is underrated and deserves far more love. I'd still say it's a genuinely fantastic movie with so many great and thematic elements to cover. It's the best looking and most gorgeous movie in the franchise, and it's such a symbolic into the characters and their personal growths, making it a truly gratifying experience. I would say the movie has no problems, Kai isn't developed as he should be, and it does have some concept that should have gone to more, and its lighter tone does hurt certain elements. I'd still say it's not as good as the first two movies, but come on, not reaching practical perfection is a stupid argument to make. This movie is still fantastic, even if it can't quite reach the levels of the movies that came before it. There's still so much beauty and art in its visuals and storytelling and thematic elements that absolutely needs to be appreciated and not to be regarded as the lesser movie in the trilogy. It has so many good aspects that just get ignored. It's a great and fantastic payoff for the series that fits in thematically perfectly and works as the perfect conclusion. And I'm honestly fine with 4 existing and hell for other movies, but I can't deny how good this movie was that despite it, it doesn't get the appreciation it deserves. That's the huge problem putting movies or just things in general on a pedestal like that. Not only does it treat it like it's untouchable and that there's no problems, but it treats it like everything that's not up to that incredible standard is just garbage and shouldn't be appreciated. And that is such a terrible and self-destructive mindset to have. It's that attitude that prevents people from truly understanding, appreciating, and loving the true heart and soul of a movie like this, from its incredible animation, emotional storytelling, and thematic perfection that so many people just seem not to understand. And that's a problem I hate seeing more and more. I'm actually starting to resent Puss in Boots 2 because it's been put on such a huge pedestal, and now it's starting to negatively affect all movies, even the studio's perception. That it's all terrible because it's not good enough to be the shining beacon. I've mentioned before how this should never be the standard of movies, but people act like the Boss Baby 2 didn't come out the year before. Like, come on guys, don't treat it like it's some hot streak. I'd argue it's killed as much appreciation for animation as it's given. And seeing people erase movies from existence or blaming the entire studio for not living with the hype of one movie to the point of calling it ruined is a more immature and childish attitude than the actual child demographic the movies were made for. Like, this movie is a prime example. We need to appreciate what we have, the artistry and where the movies we just don't respect enough because we're too conceited to. It's the main reason why I made this video, and especially since I don't know how much longer we're going to have Dreamworks. I made my thoughts on Kung Fu Panda 4, and seeing the behind the scenes of it makes a lot of things click into place and makes me genuinely worried for the studio and art forms. I think I might lose them soon, and I hope it won't happen. I love this studio and its work, and it deserves so much more credit than it's getting. I know I already used this on literally my last Kung Fu Panda video, but I think it deserves to be here more than anywhere else. Yeah, before I end, I really want to talk about Dreamworks in general. Dreamworks is my favorite animation studio, and I'm not one of those people who act like Puss in Boots 2 is the only movie they ever made. So many of their movies speak to me in ways that no other ones have. There's a reason so many of their movies deal with characters and their personal identities, responsibilities, and insecurities that so many people have. To me, while the best of Disney is like the Mona Lisa, iconic with marvelous structure and arguably perfected, Dreamworks is like Starry Night, with incredible artistry, creativity, and experimentation to bring a piece that resonates inside my soul like nothing else. It can make an even greater experience. And yeah, sure, they may have a reputation of making bad or pandering movies, but they also make such great artistic works, even many of them that turn out the way people think. You never know what to expect, and I love that about it. They're always willing to try something new, even if it might not work out the best. They made some absolute masterpieces that have touched me and millions of other people, movies I personally relate to a lot more than other studios' works. Even in a few movies I absolutely love, and I feel don't get the credit they deserve, and some who eventually got it now. They represent so much I love about art and animation, the willingness to experiment, add personal touches, and just embrace creativity and love for the medium and its franchises. And I will always love and support them no matter what. And I seriously cannot wait to see what they'll do next. After all...
Make life take the lemons back! Get mad! I don't want your damn lemons! What am I supposed to do with these? Demand to see life's manager! Make life rue the day it thought it could give Cave Johnson lemons! Do you know who I am? I'm the man who's gonna burn your house down with the lemons!